Hey, if you're still awake, tonight I wanted to talk about other people and the expectations we place on them, because I think many of our deepest frustrations begin with a simple mistake. We forget that other people are human too, including yourself, and we let that mistake shape who we are, and we shouldn't. Because we are allowed grace. We are allowed room to make that mistake, to meet a standard that is possible. And that leads me to the impossible standard. Eventually, every person disappoints us. Parents, friends, partners, mentors, heroes, everyone. Not because they're bad. No, that's not the case at all. Because they're human. Humans forget. Humans fail. Humans struggle. Humans carry wounds. Humans makes mistakes. Yet somehow, we remain surprised when humanity appears. Now, before I continue, that is why I harp on saying that if I edit these audios, right, to erase as many mistakes as possible, it won't seem human. It'll seem like I tried to try for perfection, which is funny because that was the first video series or topic of the channel was perfection. And don't get me wrong, I still like to chase perfection. I just believe that it's better to give myself some grace and allow these misperfections to appear more human, because I'm talking to another human being, or another human being is listening to me. And how can they relate to me if I don't make these mistakes and allow these mistakes and laugh at them in real time? For you to change your perspective, to look at things differently, to allow those mistakes, to give yourself grace. Which is why I don't edit these audios to achieve a level of perfection, or to make myself look non-human, because making mistakes is perfectly normal. And that leads me to the weight of expectations. I think some disappointments come from what happened, but many come from what we expected. Expectations, people never agreed to carry. Expectations, we created. Expectations, we imagined. Expectations, we slightly assigned. Then reality arrives. And reality rarely looks like expectations. No, reality is the raw truth. It's simply just reality in its raw form. For example, if I expected myself to get married, the day would be beautiful. It would be sunny. It would be on a hill. People everywhere, flowers everywhere. It's the most beautiful day in human history. That's my expectation. But in reality, it could be rainy, windy, bugs everywhere, a little bit cloudy. And that's reality. And that's how it should show up, of course. It should show up where I can expect the greatest of things. I can expect what I created. I can expect the imaginary. But when reality arrives, reality rarely looks like how I expected. And that leads me to understanding without exercising. Understanding without excusing. I said exercising. Side note, I haven't been to the gym in a week because I had to recover from an injury on my finger. Now that it's healed, I cannot wait to go to the gym tomorrow, right? Maybe that's why I said exercising. I digress. Understanding without excusing. Grace isn't pretending harmful behavior is acceptable. Grace isn't removing boundaries. Grace isn't abandoning accountability. Grace is understanding context, understanding pain, understanding humanity, understanding complexity. Because people are rarely only the worst things they've done? Question mark. That sentence did not make any sense. Let me start over. Because people are rarely only the worst things they've done. Huh? Who wrote this? Let me start over. Understanding pain. Understanding humanity. Understanding complexity. Because people are rarely only the worst thing they've done. Okay, if you say so. The burden of resentment. Resentment feels powerful until you realize you're the only one carrying it. Every day, every conversation, every memory. Eventually, resentment asks too much. Too much energy. It does. Too much attention. Too much life. And grace becomes less about freeing them and more about freeing yourself. Which is true. I don't believe in resentment. I can resent for maybe 12 hours and then I let everything go. Maybe because I'm too numb or too relaxed. Like a lot of people slighted me recently, as recent as like a month ago. A group of people slighted me, and to this day I don't resent them. I might feel uncomfortable around them, but I don't resent them. I don't feel pain. I don't feel anything. I don't resent them at all. When I see them, I still treat them with grace and kindness. So, maybe because I'm a nice person, who knows? It's hard for me to hate in general. It really is hard for me to hate. Sometimes I wish I could develop that feeling, but, like I said, in grace becomes less about freeing them and more about freeing yourself. I free myself from all that hungry and anger. I digress. People are stories in progress. Maybe people aren't projects to finish. Maybe they're stories in progress. Learning, growing, failing, becoming, just like us. And maybe grace begins when we stop demanding completed versions of unfinished people. This is true. I can reflect on that because I try to seek perfection in people all the time, which is impossible. I need to stop doing that and just allow myself to, be me. To look at, to accept the unfinished version of people and love them for who they are. And not my crazy expectation, which is not reality. So I ask you, the listener, from me, the speaker, a couple of questions. Who are you struggling to forgive? What expectation still hurts? What resentment are you tired of carrying? I had a nightmare today about my ex. And I forgive her, or I hope I do. But it's a struggle, that pain will be there for a while, maybe years, maybe decades. But I don't resent her, that's for sure. But I'm still maybe I am struggling to forgive her. Maybe that's why that nightmare is there, creeping on me like a demon at night. It doesn't hurt, but the scar still needs to be healed, I guess. And I don't want to go to therapy. I don't think I need a therapist. That's why the room is here. Grace doesn't always change the other person. Sometimes it changes the person holding the pain. Understanding isn't weakness. Compassion isn't weakness. Grace isn't weakness. Sometimes they're the strongest thing we can offer. If you're still awake tonight, remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you cannot fully see, including yourself. The room will reopen on Saturday night. I'll leave the light on for you.